All right, kids. Well, welcome to day 3 of Reading Along with me. And currently, as you know, I'm reading Kneeknock Rise by Natalie Babbitt. And I decided to come outside today because it's just so beautiful. And I know that there will be sounds in the background, but we're going to ignore that too. And we're just going to enjoy our story. Okay, so last we spoke, we discovered several new characters. We have Ada, the little girl, and Gertrude's little girl, and we have Uncle Anderson, his that's his wife Gertrude, and we have Uncle Ott, who disappears and goes up to the mountains, and of course we have the Megrimum, which we haven't figured out quite what that is, other than the fact that it's a creature, what we know, that makes a strange mournful sound when it rains. And the townspeople are so afraid of it, but yet they're so excited by it, and it's theirs, and they love owning that concept. And so fairs open up to people who are curious about it. And let's see what happens next. I'm starting on page 15. You ready? Okay, here we go. I guess so, said Egan. He looked at Ada with despair. You certainly are a mess, said Ada contemptuously. How come you're all covered with straw? And she grabbed his arm with her sharp little fingers and pointed. Look! Look! There! You never saw that before, did you? I see it every day, and it practically belongs to me. Uncle Ott ran off up there, and the Megrimum ate him. She smiled rapturously and pointed again. There. Egan looked up just as the sun dropped down behind the mountains. A long shadow fell across the house and yard from beyond the wall, where the green and purple face of the rocky hillside rose into the evening sky. It was huge and silent and cold as a gravestone. As he stared, the mist at the top went blood red in the sunset. I guess you're pretty scared, suggested Ada, hopefully. Don't be silly, said Egan. I'm not afraid of anything. But he shuddered just the same. So here, Natalie Babbitt does an amazing job just describing the sun dropping behind the mountain and giving this mist a blood red look. And I guess we could say she most certainly uses the issue of personification when she refers to the green and purple face of the rocky side of this structure, mountain, and just brilliant imagery. Can you just imagine this, distance in the distance, this big mass of rock, stone, and then at the very summit, a ring of blood red as the sun sets behind it. And so, as you can see, Ada's not afraid of it. Egan shudders because he doesn't know what it is, and she's very proud of it because she sees it every day. And again, note the little flower at the top, which indicates a change of setting. Here's Egan, Mother, said Ada when she had pulled him into the house. Here he is at last. Isn't he a mess? Sweetheart scratched him. She giggled and put the end of her pigtail into her mouth. And Gertrude put aside a bit of sewing and came forward. She was as thin as her daughter, and her narrow face was fringed with pale yellow hair. Welcome to Instep, Egan, she said. Dear me, you look exactly like your father. I never could understand how my own sister could marry such a man. So big and cheerful and noisy. I do hope you won't be noisy. You're awfully large for your age, aren't you? Dear me, you really do look just like him. And aren't you dusty? Heavens, look at that scratch. Whatever shall we do about Sweetheart? Such a disagreeable cat. Still talking, she led him away to a small room at the back of the house. Egan felt better when he saw the room. There was a cot against one wall with pillows and a pile of worn and comfortable quilts. The corners of the room were cluttered with little heaps of books and papers, and on a large table, besides the usual pitcher and bowl, there were quills and ink and an old pipe. The cloth on the table was stained with blots and pen scratches. It was all very untidy and interesting. "This will be your room, Egan," said his aunt. "You'd better wash yourself. I do hope you're not feeling too bad after your trip." "I'm feeling fine, Aunt Gertrude." "What a brave, good boy," she exclaimed. "Of course, you're feeling wretched and exhausted. Why don't you lie down?" "No, you better wash first. This is Ott's room, you know. Did you know he's disappeared again?" "My mother told me," said Egan. "Well, I'm sure I don't know what to do," said Aunt Gertrude, sitting down on the cot and wringing her hands. "Ott's been away for 3 days, and just before the fair, too. Not that it isn't easier without him, you know, but he's a good man in his way, a gentleman, and I'm so afraid he may have gone up there." That would have been a dreadfully foolish thing to do. She dabbed her eyes with the hem of her apron. Egan watched her and decided that she was enjoying the excitement very much, in spite of her nervous manner. "You're a bright and clever boy, I can see that," she said. And Egan made another decision. He was going to like Aunt Gertrude. "Yes," she went on, "you're intelligent. You get that from our side of the family. Well, wash up and then take a rest. I'll try to keep Ada quiet. But she's such a stubborn child. I'm sure I don't know what to do with her." She stood up, and there was a sharp yelp from under the cot. Aunt Gertrude shrieked and jumped aside. "Good heavens, Ott, is that you? Ott, what are you doing under there?" She went down on elbows and knees and peered under the cot while Egan waited round-eyed. "It's only Annabelle," announced Aunt Gertrude in a normal tone. "I thought it might be Ott, but it's only Annabelle." She stood up and brushed the dust from her elbows. Poor old Annabelle. She loved him so. How could he have gone away and left her? "Come, Annabelle. Come out now, dear. I'm sorry I stepped on you." "Well, she won't come out. I hope you don't mind, Egan. She seems to want to stay there." And Aunt Gertrude left the room and closed the door behind her. So, what do we have here? I would say just a very fussy kind of aunt who absolutely loves her family and loves to talk, and also she references not to go up there, which is where maybe Ott is, and that is her brother-in-law. And also we find out that Egan's mother is sisters with Aunt Gertrude. Okay, so we're going to move on. This is now page 19, kids. So Egan now again is in the room that used to be Ott's, and there's ink blots everywhere. And also one other thing too I want to point out. She did mention freshening up with a pitcher and a big large bowl. So it sounds to me that chances are they didn't really have indoor plumbing at this point. And so these are little tips that you want to collect on your way as you read to anchor yourself in the time period that the story was probably written for. Egan stood quite still in the middle of the little room and wondered somewhat nervously, who or what is this Annabelle? Might be. Remember, this is under the bed. He waited, hoping that something would happen. He had the distinct feeling that Annabelle was waiting too. However, after a few minutes, the sound of gentle snoring filled the room. Annabelle had stopped waiting and had obviously gone to sleep. "It ought to be safe to look now anyway," he said to himself, and he crouched down and peered under the cot. In the dusty gloom that hung there, the special cozy gloom that keeps it to itself under every bed, he saw what at first appeared to be the round stomach and tapering legs of a whiter than average pig. Strange to keep pigs indoors, he thought. And then, but it seems too frazzy somehow to be a pig. Perhaps it's some kind of animal I've never seen before. He pondered the dim white shape for a moment and then said experimentally, "Annabelle?" The snoring stopped at once. In its place came a soft thump thump, then silence. What do you think could go thump thump? That might be hiding under a bed. Okay, hold that thought. Well, there's only one thing to do, said Egan. I'll have to move the cot. He stood up and dragged the cot carefully away from the wall and out into the middle of the room. There, exposed at last to the blue and beautiful twilight, lay Annabelle. Annabelle, who had dearly loved his Uncle Ott, but had been left behind. She was a dog. A dog with graceful white feet and ankles, and a thick white chest, and a bulging stomach that hinted pink where the hairs were sparse and coarse. Across her back and her hips were large, irregular brown spots, and her head, which was really too small for her body, wore several shades of brown that arched over her eyes, giving her a surprised and interested expression. Around her neck, a thick roll of extra flesh fanned out soft fur into deep, inviting ruffle, and her ears drooped like rich brown velvet triangles. She was old and fat and beautiful, and Egan was instantly enchanted. Hello, you good old Annabelle, he said, and dropped to his knees to pat her. She looked up at him, her brown eyes sad and misty, and then, as if she had said to herself, well, well, perhaps, her eyes cleared and seemed to smile. She rolled heavily onto her broad, flat back, and 4 legs akimbo presented the meager hairs on her stomach for scratching. Egan scratched, and after a moment, she lifted her head awkwardly and licked him on the knee. They were friends. So I'm going to pause here on page 22, and here's your job. You're to take those details of what this Annabelle looked like, and you're to actually draw pictures of it. And you can go ahead and somehow upload your pictures, and I'll collect them all and I'll display them all on the next round or whenever I get any pictures from you guys. So what do you think Annabelle actually looks like based on Natalie Babbitt's beautiful description? Okay, till next time, kids.